This week, Donald Trump made fools out of everyone saying he has been captured by the neocons or is controlled by the Israelis. He shocked Benjamin Netanyahu by ordering him to stop bombing Gaza so that the hostages could be released safely. And he praised Hamas for being ready for peace. He had previously warned Hamas that unless they agreed to his whole peace plan by Sunday, all hell, like no one has ever seen before, will break out against Hamas. But as Barak Raviv documents in Axios, all the Middle East players, including Netanyahu, thought that any partial agreement by Hamas, like releasing the hostages, would result in Israel unleashing just that holy hell on Gaza. But Trump was working with Arab states outside Israel's control, and he knew that Hamas's agreement to release the hostages was the most vital breakthrough to work with, and he took it and he slammed Netanyahu. Here's President Trump talking about the release of the hostages and his Mideast peace breakthrough. Notice who he thanks and praises. Roll it, Adam.
I want to thank the countries that helped me put this together: Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents, because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive. So I just want to let you know that this is a very special day, maybe unprecedented in many ways. It is unprecedented, but thank you all, and thank you all to those great countries that helped. We were given a tremendous amount of help. Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly.
And if Putin's speech on Thursday in Russia is any indication, peace in Ukraine is also there to be made.
Что касается предложения президента Трампа по Газе, вы знаете, наверное, будет неожиданным для вас, но в целом Россия его готова поддержать.
I'm Barbara Boyd, and I've been studying Trump's approach to the globalists and their wars ever since his first term. Because they knew Trump would revive the United States economy and its culture and make peace with Russia, they unleashed every weapon they had against him. Today, I'm going to first show you how Donald Trump and President Putin are fighting a different war than anyone thinks. That's the war for traditional national cultures. Then I'm going to talk about Trump's now declared war on the drug cartels, ANTIFA, and the 1960s counterculture. If you like our videos, please like and share this one. It increases our reach on YouTube. Here is President Trump at the United Nations in September of 2019.
The truth is plain to see. If you want freedom, take pride in your country. If you want democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique.
Here's President Putin on Thursday, and I have to read it because he spoke in Russian and I'm giving you the translation. The world has already lived through attempts at unification, at imposing so-called universal models that clashed with the cultural and ethical traditions of most peoples. The Soviet Union once made this mistake by imposing its political system. We know this, and frankly, I do not think anyone would argue. Later, the United States took up the baton, and Europe too tried. In both cases, it failed. What is superficial, artificial, imposed from outside cannot last. And those who respect their own traditions, as a rule, do not encroach on those of others. Putin says the nationalist approach to foreign relations under President Trump has allowed the United States and Russia to open a new dialogue and begin to resolve differences. Europe is, however, a very different story. It is collapsing because of the rotten culture globalization imposed, climate change hysteria, outsourcing and deindustrialization, uncontrolled immigration, unprosecuted rapes and murders, drug legalization, censorship and election rigging, arresting citizens for social media posts, the genocidal war in Ukraine. The same stuff Joe Biden and Barack Obama imported to our country. Putin contrasts the cultural revival in the United States under Trump with Europe's collapse. He condemns the murder of Charlie Kirk and says Charlie was a martyr for traditional values in what is the civilizational struggle of our time. He says that Europeans are moving to Moscow because they are terrified by the trans ideologies and violence to children, violent immigrants, election rigging, and censorship Europe now embraces. With their populations in revolt, Europe's elites have tried to maintain their power by using the empire's oldest trick, inventing an external enemy. Putin says that Russia now is that external enemy. Fyodor Lukyanov interviewed Putin during the discussion period after the speech. He tried to provoke him into criticizing Trump, and he got crickets. Lukyanov repeats Trump's description from last week of the Russian military as a paper tiger in the Ukraine war. Putin responds by noting Russia has not been fighting Ukraine in Ukraine. They have been fighting all of NATO in Ukraine since 2022. So if Russia is a paper tiger, what is NATO? He does say that U.S. supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would be a dangerous escalation.
However, Putin grew serious when discussing the potential U.S. supply of long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine.
Могут томагавки нанести нам ущерб?
Can Tomahawks harm us? They can. We'll be shooting them down and improving our air defense systems.
Несет ли это ущерб нашим
Using Tomahawks without the direct participation of American military personnel is impossible. This would mark a completely new, qualitatively new stage of escalation, including in relations between Russia and the United States.
But as of today, it looks like no Tomahawks are coming to Ukraine, despite British and Ukrainian demands for them throughout the last week. Putin ends the session by reading a poem by Russia's national poet, Alexander Pushkin. It celebrates Russia's 1812 defeat of Napoleon. In that war, Russia's unified culture was victorious over Europe's most powerful army. Russians willingly sacrificed themselves, their possessions, and even burned Moscow to trap Napoleon with no supplies deep in Russia during Russia's brutal winter. His army didn't survive. Now, just because Putin and Trump agree on what RT calls the invisible front line of all wars, it doesn't mean peace is at hand right now in Ukraine. Just listen here to Fiona Hill's most recent interview.
So you're handicapping that this, at the end of the day, that Russia has the advantage right now. Is that accurate?
Well, I actually don't think it has to have the advantage. Look, this is a game of chicken, right? I mean, it's and one could say it's a game of chicken Kiev because Putin's basically banking on the fact that it's the Ukrainians are going to blink or just literally collapse, or they're going to turn back, or everybody else is going to turn back. But the point of saying all of this is to say that we don't have to do this. There are, as I said, serious deliberations right now about doing something with the Russian frozen assets, finding a formula that enables them to be put to use of helping Ukraine defend itself. I think Europeans are getting more serious about taking action that's required in terms of building their own defense, but helping to make sure that Ukraine can defend those lines and not let Russia go any further forward. So this is the critical juncture in which a signal has to be sent to Putin saying, no, we're not going to let you do this. We're going to actually make sure that Ukraine can keep on defending itself and pushing you back. And we're not going to actually put up with these incursions of drones or aircraft or all the other things that you're going to throw at us here, there is actually some solidarity in Europe. It may not be all European countries, and we can see Hungary and Slovakia and a host of other countries clearly making it obvious that they're not going to do what it takes, and that's what gives Putin the confidence that he can push forward. But if the other major European players, the UK, France, Germany, all the Scandinavian countries, Poland, the Baltic states, etc., push back, that's going to be a different matter. And we'll have to see now whether these drone attacks, we've had, all kinds of evidence now that Putin's doing this to test everyone's resolve. If they respond with resolve, then we might see something different. You've just got to show Putin that he can't go any further. But, again, this is the moment. This is the testing time.
Do you remember who this woman is? She was infiltrated as the Russian expert on Donald Trump's first National Security Council in 2017. She was best buds with Christopher Steele, the MI6 author of the dirty dossier about Trump, which was the center of Russiagate. Igor Danchenko, the main source for all of Steele's garbage about Trump, was her researcher at the Brookings Institution. She became a key witness against Trump in the impeachment. Where is she now? Well, back in Britain, conducting the current defense review of Her Majesty's military for the British government. So I've tried to take you through a deeper story here about the principles Trump is using to do what seems to everyone to be almost impossible. It's all about listening and understanding the true interests of sovereign nations and using that as the negotiating pieces on his chessboard. Since most people try to impose their set views on the world or adapt to prevailing opinion rather than faithfully observing and reacting to reality and creating new solutions, Trump's methods and his creativity make these people very, very angry. Now, if you want to go behind these videos and get our research and show notes, please become a paid subscriber to our newsletter. The link is in the description. Now, for the second point, Trump's righteous wars all launched this week. While Trump seeks a peace in the Middle East and Ukraine, he has opened a real war which is in our true national interest. This one is against the drug cartels who are killing 100,000 Americans a year, including a significant population of our young people. On Friday, he notified the Congress that the United States is now engaged in outright war militarily with those drug cartels. He is also taking down the color revolution and internal subversion machinery, which was turned against the American people from 2016 through 2024. This week, the FBI ended its relationship with the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith and the Southern Poverty Law Center, both of which made their money by informing for the intelligence community and defaming dissidents and populists. So much for Trump being controlled by Israel vis-a-vis cutting off the ADL. He also declared the various violent street gangs, which are the shock troops for the current insurrection, to be domestic terrorists. That means he can not only go after all these thugs, he can go after their funders and controllers in the NGOs and foundations. The executive order declaring Antifa and similar violent gangs to be terrorists makes specific reference to the anti-fascist branding of these gangs. In the modern period, they were developed in Germany by British intelligence after the fall of the wall. The goal was to prevent a sovereign Germany from working with Russia to develop Eurasia by violently destabilizing the German government. Most importantly, the whole anti-fascist brand, so much used by the Democrats at this point, is the product of the Frankfurt School, an intelligence front which waged a cultural war to subvert the United States from within after World War II. Sexual promiscuity, gender fluidity, feminism, identity politics, drug use, atonal music. These were all Frankfurt School creations. They were created, they said, to free the American people from what they called a genetic tendency toward fascism and authoritarianism. White men and the family, churches, executive leadership through the presidency were all called fascists and singled out for destruction. But the most important target was the can-do spirit of American scientific and technological optimism. That's what President Trump is reviving through his workers' first economic policy. So both Trump and Putin are on to something very profound here, something no other media is really telling you about or putting in its historical context. But a superior culture, one which you'd be willing to die for, and a clear and curious and creative mind are the keys to victory in the battle to revive our nation. Again, we really strive to provide that context to you so you can focus and see the battle lines clearly. Please help us expand by donating to Promethean Action. The link again is in the description. I'll see you again on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.